The last part of section 1.7 that I want to cover would be multiplying and dividing fractions. Our sign rules are still going to hold. If they have the same sign, your answer will be positive. If they have different signs, your answer will be negative. But first I want to start with reducing. There are two different ways of reducing. One way of reducing is to see what goes into both numbers. So in the first number, I've got 10/15ths, and I know that 5 goes into both, so I can list out the factors. 10 is actually 5 times 2, and 15 is actually 5 times 3. So when I get ready to reduce, a 5 in the top and a 5 in the bottom cancel, and my answer is 2/3. And that would be the reduced answer. But another way of doing it is if we take the fraction 24/42, we can find what number goes into both. And although there's some smaller numbers, the larger number that goes into both 24 and 42 is 6. So what I can do is say I'm going to divide this top number by 6. And to be fair, if I divide the top number by 6, I have to also divide the bottom number by 6. So 24 divided by 6 would give me 4, and 42 divided by 6 would give me 7, and that would be the proper reducing of 24/42. Next, we want to multiply fractions. If you're multiplying fractions, it's much easier than adding and subtracting. All you have to do is multiply across the top, so we would get A times C, and multiply across the bottom, and we get B times D. Now I started with a really easy fraction. It doesn't reduce. They will get a little tougher. But in my fraction here, I have 2/7 times 5/9. So 2 times 5 would give me 10. 7 times 9 would give me 63. And that's how they work. Of course, they will get a little tougher. When you're dividing fractions, you have a rule that says you flip the second one and change it to multiply. So I keep the first, change the sign to multiply, and I flip the second one over. Now it's a multiplying problem just like our other one was. So we multiply across the top and we get AD, multiply across the bottom and we get BC. Remember, if you're dividing two fractions, you flip the second and change it to multiply. So for my problem here that demonstrates this rule, I have 3/5 divided by 7/8. I'm going to keep the 3/5, change it to multiply, and flip the 7/8 so it becomes 8/7. This would give me 24 in the top and 35 in the bottom, 24/35. Okay, as I stated earlier, these get a little tougher, plus we're going to throw in positives and negatives. So here we go. We're going to take 3/7 times 2/9. I'm going to work it two different ways, so you see two of them on your screen. Method 1 is how we just worked them earlier. So 3 times 2 will give me 6, and 7 times 9 would give me 63. But the problem with 6/63 is that it's not reduced. So the number that goes into both of these would be 3. So we've got to reduce this one down. I say that I'm going to divide the top by 3, which means I divide the bottom by 3. And my final answer here would be 2/21. Okay, so in that particular method, you're going to multiply first and then reduce. Method 2 is a little easier though. So what you're going to do in method 2 is actually reduce first. When I look at these fractions, I see 3/7 and 2/9, and they don't reduce within themselves, but they can cross-reduce. For example, I see a 3 in the top and a 9 in the top. 3 and 9 go into each other by 3. So 3 goes into 3 one time, and 3 goes into 9 3 times. So I actually just reduced first. Now multiply what you have left. 1 1 times 2 would give me 2. 1 times 2 would give me 2. And 7 times 3 would give me 21. And this would be 2 over 21. You can work it the way that you feel more comfortable. Usually method 2 is a little easier. So that's how you would work them if they reduce. But we also have to talk about what happens if we have signs. So here we go. I have negative 2/3 times 1/5. They have different signs, so my answer is negative. I don't see anything that reduces, so I can multiply straight across the top. 2 times 1, and that gives me 2. I can multiply straight across the bottom. 3 times 5, that gives me 15. So my answer is negative 2/15. My next problem is negative 5/8 times negative 2/5. I'm sorry, that's negative 2/25. Two negatives make a positive result. These do cross reduce. 5 and 8 won't reduce. 2 and 25 won't reduce, but they will reduce across from one another. So 5 and 25 share a common factor of 5. 5 goes into 5 one time, and 5 goes into 25 5 times. 2 and 8 will also reduce by 2. So 2 will go into 2 and 2 will go into 8. 2 will go into 2 one time and 2 will go into 8 four times. So what this leaves you with across the top is 1 times 1 and across the bottom 4 times 5. Now I have that big plus sign out in front. That lets me know that I took care of the sign. You can put the plus, but you don't have to. So if you just had 1/20th, that's just fine. My next problem is negative 3/4 times 5/8. They have different signs, so my answer is negative. I don't see anything that crosses out, so 5 times 3 gives me 15 on the top. 4 times 8 gives me 32 on the bottom, negative 15 over 32. For my next one, I have negative 3/4 times negative 4/7. I have the same sign, so my answer is going to be positive. I can multiply across the top and multiply across the bottom and then reduce, or I can see that I have a 4 in the top and a 4 in the bottom. So 4 goes into 4 one time and 4 goes into 4 one time, and that leaves me with a 3 on the top and a 7 on the bottom. Okay, my next one is dividing. So when I divide, my first step is to rewrite it. So this is going to be 5/4 times, and we flip the second one and make it 8 over 3. Now cross reducing works best for me, but make sure you do all your flipping first. If you didn't like cross reducing, you can multiply across the top and get 40 and across the bottom and get 12, and then you can reduce it from there. When I cross reduce, I see that 4 and 8 share a common factor. 4 goes into 8 two times and 4 goes into 4 one time. So this leaves me with a 10 on the top and a 3 on the bottom. My next problem is a negative 2/7 divided by 1/4. So this is going to give me a negative 2/7. I'm going to flip it and change it to 4 over 1. Now I kept the parentheses on there, but you don't have to keep the parentheses with it. Looking at my signs, they're different, which means my answer is negative. I don't see anything that reduces, so if I multiply across the top, I get 8, and across the bottom, I get 7. Negative 8/7 is a good answer. You could also make it a mixed number and say negative 1 and 1/7, but you don't have to. At first glance, you might have thought they reduce, but 2 and 4 are both on the top. If they're both on the top, they're not going to cancel out. Last ones, we have a negative 7/10 divided by 5/8. So my first step is to rewrite it. So I have negative 7/10 times 8/5 when I flip. 8 and 10 share a common factor. 2 goes into both of them. So 2 goes into 8 4 times, and 2 goes into 10 5 times. Looking at my signs are different, so my answer is negative, and this would be a 28/25 negative. The last one you see is 1/3 times -7, so no flipping. If I rewrote this in a more usable way, this is actually 1/3 times -7, and to make -7 into a fraction, I put it over 1. So this answer would be negative because the signs are different. You have a 7 on the top and a 3 on the bottom, so your answer is -7/3. And this concludes section 1.7.